at some of the notable first-rounders and their career pass attempts in college. And as you could probably figure, Bo Nix has the most, 1,936. But it's easy to forget how much experience Jayden Daniels has at age 23. He threw over 1,400 passes in his college career, which goes all the way back to 2019 at Arizona State. Brandon Ayuk was the Sun Devils' leading receiver that year, by the way. Another guy who spent some quality time in Arizona, Cliff Kingsbury, is now the new OC in Washington. Mina, what do you want to see out of Daniels?
Yeah. There's a couple of things I'll be looking for, Hannah. One of which is if Jayden is starting, and we're hearing he is, I assume that means you're going to see most of the starting offensive line. That's my biggest concern, really, about this Washington Commanders offense. I like the skill players a lot, led, of course, by Terry McLaurin, but I do have a lot of question marks about whether or not McDaniels will have sufficient protection. So I'll be curious to see how that group looks, how they play together, even if it's going to be, just one or two drives. And then the other thing I'd like to see, I don't think that we're going to see a robust quarterback designed run game in the preseason from Daniels, but I do feel like at some point he probably will show some of that escapability that he dazzled with in college, maybe take off if nobody's open. And then what I want to see is, I already know he's fast, I already know he can scramble. Can he avoid contact? Because that was probably my biggest concern about him as a prospect, was the types of hits he took at LSU, and that was something that worried me about, translating to the NFL level. So if he does scramble and extend, I want to see if he has an awareness when it comes to protecting himself from unnecessary contact.
First, let me say this. I think there's a widespread expectation around the league that he's going to start. It would be a surprise if he didn't, and it would take an awful lot for him not to be their opening day starting quarterback. He would have to perform really poorly this summer not to win that starting job. He is tracking to be their opening day starting quarterback. He is what people thought he would be. He's got that charismatic personality that players are drawn to, that the coaches around the team are drawn to. But I still think that what you're looking for out of him is the same thing that we saw out of certain rookie quarterbacks when they took the field in their opening preseason summer. I remember Russell Wilson as a rookie. He just popped. I remember Dak Prescott as a rookie. He popped. You're looking for Jayden Daniels to pop. And even if he doesn't pop, because they're being conservative in their play calling and holding back some of the ideas that they'll use on opening day, again, I still think he'd have to play himself out of this job not to be the Commanders' opening day starting quarterback.
Yeah, listen, I'm excited about Jay Daniels. It's not only this preseason, but this upcoming season. I think Mina did point out about the offensive line, which is a concern of mine. I'll be interested to see how this group gels, but I think the Washington Commanders had a really good offseason, whether they talk about free agency, the draft. I think GM Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, head coach Dan Quinn, has done a really good job. And I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to unleash Jayden Daniels. We saw in the little diagram there that he's played a bunch of snaps. This dude has had a bunch of reps. Hell, I saw where he was going up against Justin Herbert in college. That just shows you how many snaps this guy has taken. I think this guy can handle a lot. He's an explosive playmaker. He can push the ball down the field. My only question is, can he stay healthy? Because as Mina referenced, he did take a bunch of big hits at LSU.
Man, I mean, those were like cartoon, like pow. You felt like you would see something like that, some of those huge hits he took. But 12,000 career passing yards, 3,000 career rushing yards, nobody else.
Okay, so I'm really excited to talk about this because there's something that I really want to emphasize, especially about Cliff Kingsbury, that I want to unpack a little bit, and I kind of have some information, stats that I'm excited to kind of go through. But in terms of, I want to address real fast in terms of Jayden Daniels to play in the preseason opener. I'm a little conflicted by that personally. I know Dan Quinn can be a little bit more old school in that regard, and I just think in a perfect world where there's not going to be like continuous news cycles and heightened scrutiny, I think maybe it would be okay for, these players like a Jayden Daniels to get a drive or two to kind of get a feel. But the truth is if he balls out, it ends up being a lose-lose situation, because if he kind of balls out or pops, as Schefter was kind of talking about, people will just say, well, it's preseason. right? Who cares? And maybe some of these news shows will like try to like be like, this is great, but then there will always be someone that says it's preseason, it's preseason, it's preseason. And if he doesn't do well, then actually we know how the negative media bias ends up being, and they won't just say, well, it's preseason, but there will be an emphasis of, he didn't look good, he looked lost, he looked confused, that was a terrible throw, he's clearly too small, or, you know, whatever it may be. And so it's kind of like, I don't see the advantage, and you're not going to get a tremendous amount of growth or experience in this type of situation. And I actually think that preseason, especially for a young quarterback like this, at the very least, this first game, he should actually just be 100% on the sidelines. 100%. And the conversation should be like, hey, you're obviously not playing. You're just going to observe. I want you to observe. I know you're going to want to kind of like talk and make jokes with some of your friends. You are observing. You are a resident doctor right now. You just got signed on board, and you are just observing this high-end, you know, brain surgery. That is what you're doing. I want you to just look at everything. I want you to look at the crowd. I want you to look at the other sideline. I want you to look at the other players. I want you to see the coaches. I want you to watch the speed of the game, the refs. I want you to look at how much bigger and faster the players are than what you're used to. Sure, you get to see it a little bit in practice, but this is different now. We're in pads. We're trying to hit hard. You got people that are trying to fight for you know, spots, money, whatever it may be. I want you just to take it all in. And that's just what I would be doing with regards to all of that. I think, you know, at the very least, just doing that for the very first time, because this is really going to be his first true NFL experience. And I just don't think that he should have to worry about anything else except for observing. It's what we do for all of the highest professions and the most important professions and the most important jobs in the world, in the history of life. That's what we've always have done. And for whatever reason, we believe that when it comes to football or some of these other things, that it's good just to throw them out, sink or swim. And that's not always the best case, honestly. So that's just my approach. But it's not like it's going to be the worst thing ever. It's not like I'm saying this is a disaster. This is, what are they doing? It's just, I lean more towards a more conservative approach. But now to the question of how good will Jayden Daniels be? Now, Bucky Brooks was on the Herd a couple days ago, and he was talking to Colin, and he said, listen, there's a lot of these, you know, young quarterbacks, these rookie quarterbacks who were drafted, and we see that actually it might be kind of upside down with who we think will have quicker success. Because a lot of people think Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, right, top draft picks, that they'll be faster at, you know, having success in the NFL compared to, say, Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy. And he was kind of saying that it's actually kind of opposite, because Bo Nix went to Sean Payton and J.J. McCarthy went to Kevin O'Connell, two great offensive head coaches, and so that they'll be set up to have success a lot more quicker than maybe Caleb and Jayden. Now, I think that there is a lot of truth to that and validity to that, and you guys all know that I'm super high on offensive head coaches, but it cannot be understated that Cliff Kingsbury is legit. Okay, he's gotten so much hate over the years, really, at this point, and kind of seen as a failure with Arizona and Kyler, and I just reject that wholeheartedly. And I think Jayden and Cliff can have a tremendous amount of success, and very quickly. And if you look at this, you know, it's worth mentioning that Cliff Kingsbury took over the number 32 ranked offense in the NFL that only scored 225 points on the way to a 3-13 record the year before. So that improvement to 16th and 361 points in his first season with a rookie QB is impressive. 5-10-1 to 8-8, and the 13th overall offense in year 2. Year 3, he's 11-6, and in the playoffs with the 11th best offense. I mean, it's just real. They were having tremendous amount of success. Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury really took the NFL by storm. I mean, like, it was pretty spectacular. And then everything collapsed, and it wasn't Cliff Kingsbury's fault. I mean, think of the success that they were able to have in an organization that was really struggling, poorly owned, which has been very consistent. I mean, they get ripped by it. Their GM is, I don't know, a question mark, maybe at best. And then again, 2022, then the disaster that was 2022. 30 different players on IR throughout the season, with 21 of them missing 4+ games, with about 12 to 13 missing a majority of the season, injured, and a few who were the entire season. Out of the players on IR, you had starters like Brown, Ertz, Hudson, Humphreys, Lawrence, Pugh, Murray. By the way, I know Justin Pugh. Moore and Byron Murphy. So like, and also, they had suspensions because of other issues. Like, it wasn't even just injuries. So there was a lot going on here, and the fact that somehow Cliff Kingsbury is supposed to just like continue winning and continue being great under those circumstances is kind of just absurd. And I really don't think that he actually probably should have even been fired, quite frankly. I understand that he didn't have a great relationship with Kyler, but quite frankly, that's more on Kyler Murray than anything else. It just is. There's no reason to believe that Cliff Kingsbury is difficult to get along with. Zero reason to believe that. Zero. And I think his successes and failures with Arizona, because all coaches have failures, are going to be the riches for the Commanders, because he is now going to learn a lot. He is more established in NFL offenses, and I think he's going to want to protect Jayden Daniels, especially because he knows what it's like to have all this momentum and then having injuries, especially quarterback injury, just explode everything, right? So I do think Cliff will do what he can to protect Jayden Daniels. It depends if Jayden Daniels wants to listen, because a lot of times these quarterbacks, and I'm not saying he's reckless, but just sometimes these quarterbacks just are reckless, and they you can't outcoach it. They can't get the message for whatever reason. And I'm hopeful though that Jayden will understand, and I'm hopeful Cliff will understand as well. And so I think their success together, is really kind of going under the radar. It is just so funny how quick we are to kind of throw a coach or a coordinator aside when they've had so much success, but then like when there's like a just cluster injuries and just a mismanaged franchise, we're just like, nope, not good, get him out of here. And it's just like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense, because we offer that grace for the most part for a lot of players. Right? We'll look and say, well, look what Baker was able to do with Cleveland. Look what, hey, let's give Justin Fields another chance. He was with Chicago. Like, what do you want him to do with Chicago? All that, right? Like we do give that grace for a lot of these players. But then when a coach has tremendous amount of success in a franchise that's clearly just like floundering, with a difficult to coach quarterback, and yet he's still able to have tremendous amount of success, we're just like, nope, not good. Fire him. Get him out of here. It's just like, it just doesn't really make sense. So I think the Commanders really got a steal with Cliff Kingsbury, and I think the marriage between him and Jayden Daniels really has the potential to be great. The biggest issue is that Cliff Kingsbury won't be there forever, especially because I do think that they're going to have high levels of success. And then I think Cliff Kingsbury is just going to get another head coaching job, and I think he'll get that offer sooner than later. So really, you're just hoping that Jayden Daniels can learn as much as possible, and Cliff Kingsbury can instill that offensive identity to the Washington Commanders as quickly as possible. And hopefully, if you're a Commanders fan, for the next 1, 2, 3, it's hard to imagine he's going to be there longer than 3 years. I can see 2, but like I said, I really think he will have great success with Jayden Daniels and that offense with the Commanders. And under those circumstances, teams are going to want to hire him, and I'm sure he's going to want to be a head coach again in the NFL. So definitely exciting times for the Commanders, and I really think that offense is going to go understated. And I believe Dan Quinn is a great defensive coach, and so you got to imagine that defense will be pretty legit sooner than later. And so when you have a legit offense and you have a legit defense, what does that mean? It means you have a legit team. So I think the Commanders' time of kind of being irrelevant is going to be a thing of the past. So I'm excited to see how this all unfolds. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Jayden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury will have success very early on, or do you think it'll take some time to kind of get this thing going. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.